Good evening, everybody, and welcome to ANC 2C in our April 12th community meeting. My name is Commissioner Michael Schenkel, and I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening. We have a fairly full agenda as usual. Hopefully, we will not be as our last agenda and go until 10 o'clock. But I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:02. We have joining us this evening is Commissioner Nelson from 2C03. Commissioner Miskey is not able to join us this evening. She unfortunately had a bike accident over the weekend and is recovering at home. So there are 2 of 3 commissioners present. So we do have a quorum this evening and can proceed as scheduled. I'll just show our agenda quickly. And if there are additions to the agenda or corrections to the agenda, please do let us know at this time. We will be starting, we'll discuss the March 2020 minutes. Have a treasurer's report and discuss the fiscal filing that is required by ANC's quarterly for quarter 2. We will have a series of community announcements from the mayor's office, Brooke Pinto's office, Chairman Mendelson's office has been invited as well, MPD 1 and MPD 2. We do not have any local events that impact the community this month. For alcohol beverage licensing, we have one event at one license request at 1350 I Street Northwest. And then for public space, we have 2 requests related to public space, new sidewalk cafes occurring. Sorry about that. And we will also this evening be discuss 2 zoning requests. That would be for 613 and 617 H Street Northwest. And we'll be having a presentation from the National Capital Planning Commission regarding the Pennsylvania Avenue visions and concepts as they begin that process. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda or anything that we have inadvertently left off the agenda? Is that a hand there? Yes, Julius.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. On the paperwork, you have Kevin Pham listed as the Ward 2 liaison. He's the liaison for Ward 6. I'm the liaison for Ward 2, and I believe that Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage is presenting the budget tonight, not Councilmember Pinto.
So you are filling the vacancy for the mayor's office?
Yes, sir. For Joe Florio. I believe I attended last month when I did my introduction.
Got it.
I actually have 2 updates.
Sorry about that. Okay.
It's all right.
And you said there is a budget update this evening as well?
Yes, sir. To my understanding.
Yep. Got it. And who will be giving the budget update?
That's Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage, who's already online and present.
Got it. Awesome. Terrific. We will do that. We'll put that on our agenda as well.
Thank you.
Any other items?
No, that's it.
All right. Commissioner Nelson, do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the modifications noted?
Motion to approve the agenda with the modification.
Awesome. And I will second that. All those in favor? So 2 of 2 commissioners present voting in favor of the agenda approval. We do not have our March 2022 minutes back. We will have those back prior to our next meeting, and they will be posted on our website. We did have a delay in getting those minutes prepared this month due to a technical issue that was occurring with our YouTube page. So those will be available at our next meeting for sure, and on our website by April 30th. Treasurer's report.
Okay, so I'm doing 2 reports. I'm going to do the March Treasurer's report first, and then I will go into the quarterly financial report. So for the March Treasurer's report, the opening balance at the beginning of the month of March was $62,021.54. The closing balance was $61,813.54. The 2 transactions that occurred in March were a bank fee in the amount of $33 and also a check in the amount of $175. Those 2 transactions totaled $208. So that was the March Treasurer's report. Now, for the quarterly financial report for FY22 quarter 2, the balance forwarded from last quarter was $62,779.54, which means that that's the amount that was available during this quarter, the total funds that were available during this quarter. The total disbursements this quarter amounted to $966 even, and that breaks down to a direct office cost of $25. That was for the ANC security fund. The purchase of service for the minutes totaled $875 for the quarter, and then bank fees in the amount of $66. And if you're wondering why there were so many bank fees, if you guys will recall, the post office was having some difficulty getting mail where it was supposed to be, and we assumed it was lost. And then it turned out that it just showed up about 2 months late, but we had already put a stop payment on the checks just in case they were lost. So anyway, the ending balance for the second quarter is $61,813.54. And that's the end of the quarterly financial report.
Great. Would you like to make any questions regarding the report? Any community questions? I have none. Would you like to make a motion to approve the report?
Sure. Motion to approve the second quarter quarterly financial report.
I'll second that. And all in favor? So 2 of 2 commissioners voting in favor of that. So that is approved. Awesome. And you'll resend that link to us, me to sign off on that.
Sure.
Great. I do wish to announce that Commissioner Miskey from 2C02 will be resigning her commission on May 1st of this year. She will be relocating at this time. She had all intentions of being here tonight for this, so maybe we'll invite her back to another ANC meeting for her official goodbyes. But she did submit official resignation because of that relocation that's going to be occurring. So we will move on from there. In the meantime, Commissioner Nelson and I will be responsive to the residents' needs in 2C02. Okay, so for the Ward 2's Mayor's Liaison, may we have Julius?
Yes, hi everyone. Again, my name is Julius Terry. I'm the new Ward 2 liaison taking over Joe Florio's duties and positions. I have two announcements, two updates, so to speak. At the last meeting, I believe the issue was brought up for 509 8th Street with the buildup in the alley. Let me make sure that I am on point with okay, yes, 509 8th Street. Um, I have been speaking with Miss Wendy with DPW, and then I had a meeting this morning with the code and rodent inspector, Mr. Pittman, and also a public health analyst. I'm going to be sending them information, so I'm pulling them in on that as well. And the other one, I believe, was for a request for the Ford Theater project. That was sent in an email, I believe. If anybody needs it, you can, I leave my information in the chat, my contact, and I can forward any of the info to anybody that requested. That'll be all. Thank you.
What was the second thing? A board theater? What, Mr. Terry, what was your second item that you indicated?
Yes, sir. It was for the Forge Theater project area, which is a long-term project. There was a full email sent out to a request the other day.
Yep.
From let me see. I can't see the name at the moment, but I just wanted to make sure I made those announcements, being that it pertains to our ward.
Got it. And that's related to the intersection
Yes.
issue. You got it. Got it. Terrific. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any questions for the mayor's office? Before we get to Deputy Mayor Turnage, I know we have the Ward 2 council member's office, Brooke Pinto's staff on. They are doing office hours this evening as well. So we wanted to make sure that they got to give any updates before they had to jump off.
Thank you, Chair Schenkel. I'll be quick. Good to see you all, and I want to thank Commissioner Miskey for her service. If any of you are her constituents and need help in her absence, please feel free to reach out to our office. We're always happy to assist. So we do have a few upcoming in-person events that I want to let you know about. Tomorrow we have office hours as well in Shaw from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Shaw Library, which is at 7th and R Streets Northwest. You don't need to RSVP. You can just show up and talk to the council member, or most of our staff will be there. We will be outside, as it should be a nice day, and for COVID purposes, to try to make people more comfortable. So again, Shaw Library from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow. We're also holding an Earth Day cleanup in DuPont Circle on Sunday, April 24th at 12 p.m. If you're interested in attending, you can just meet us in the circle. And again, there's lots of neighborhood cleanups happening around that time, so you can check your next door or local listservs for ones that may be happening closer to all of you. We'll hold our second annual community bike ride on Saturday, May 21st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I want to make sure you can save the date for that. We will be starting in Shaw and riding west.
I gotta speak.
Sorry, and ending in Georgetown. Mr. Palmer, mute yourself. We'll have more details in our newsletter about the bike ride, and you're welcome to join for any portion. You can just meet us at the stops if you're not a biker to talk about transportation issues. I believe the closest stop we'll have to all of you will be Franklin Park, and we'll stop there, for about half an hour or 20 minutes to chat. The ANC Redistricting Task Force completed their recommendations for ANC boundaries for the next decade. I want to give a special shout out to Howard Marks for representing 2C for the many, many hours he has spent on this. As you are all really probably aware, part of ANC 2C is now in Ward 6, so the ANC boundaries did need to change significantly. Under the task force's recommendations, there will be 4 single-member districts in ANC 2C, and 2C will expand to the north and the west, and will cover areas south of Massachusetts Avenue over to Scott Circle, and then over to about 20th Street, I think, south of the Scott Circle area. So parts of current ANC's 2F and 2B will be part of 2C. And so there'll be now a more robust downtown ANC. And the task force did that on purpose. They thought that that would make 2C well equipped to handle future downtown issues, especially as we look at more residential conversions happening in downtown. And we know that all of you have dealt with this for a long time already. You can view the final map that the task force voted for on our website on the redistricting page under the map section. You can also go on Councilmember Silverman's website. I'll post a link to that in the chat. She chairs the council's redistricting subcommittee, which held the first of their two hearings on the task force recommendations last week on Thursday. And now the second and final hearing on the redistricting recommendations will be on April 28th. And you can still sign up to testify before April 26th at 5 p.m. if you'd like to testify on the 28th, and I'll post a link to sign up for that in the chat. So if you have strong feelings for or against this plan, please do sign up to testify. The council is going to vote twice on the legislation before June 7th. So changes may still be made in the process. So that there are changes, that could still happen. This all sets up a really tight schedule for ANC candidates. So if you're thinking about running for ANC or if you're running for re-election, you'll have to get 25 signatures in order to appear on the November ballot. Keep in mind, there's no primary because it's nonpartisan. But I believe the Board of Elections has currently said you'll have between July 20th and August 10th to collect your signatures. So I know that is a short time frame at a time when a lot of people might go on vacation. So keep those dates in mind. Councilmember Pinto already raised this with the Board of Elections at their budget oversight hearing and asked if there was a possibility of granting ANC candidates more time to collect signatures. Finally, I'll just mention the budget, which I know Deputy Mayor Turnage is going to give you a great presentation on in a moment. The mayor released her budget on March 16th and included funding for a lot of things that Councilmember Pinto has advocated for and a lot of you advocated for. And I know that our top two concerns that we hear about in our office are public safety and supporting our neighbors who are at risk or experiencing homelessness. So I'll let the Deputy Mayor talk about that more, but I'll just say that we'll keep working hard over the next few weeks to make sure that Ward 2 projects and priorities receive the funding they need. And the council will take their votes on the budget, I believe, on May 10th and May 24th. So that's now less than a month away for the first budget vote. And I think that's all from me. I'll post links in the chat and happy to take questions.
Brian, has there been any changes to the maps that were submitted for Ward 2 by the redistricting committee?
I don't think so. I think that because they only had that first hearing on the 7th, they didn't make any actual changes yet. They did hear, some requests for changes, certainly, but I don't, as far as I know, no. And Councilmember Silverman's website keeps everything pretty up to date. So,
got it. Thank you very much. Any additional questions for the Councilmember Pinto's office? Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And now we'll turn it over to have a budget update from Deputy Mayor Turnage.
Good evening, and thank you all for having me and several members of my team. Jamal Weldon, who runs our encampment program and is in our newly minted Deputy Chief of Staff, Sakina Thompson, who is our legal counsel, and I believe our policy director, Brian Harrison, is on here as well. Jamal is going to load a presentation that I have been given. It's I will do since I wasn't expected to be on the agenda, I will do my best to move through it as quickly as possible so as not to keep you all here longer than is necessary and to be respectful of all the other issues that you all have to contend with. If I move too fast, you can stop me, but I'm always here for questions after I finish. Jamal, if you want to load the presentation now, we can get started. So if you go to the next slide, the areas that I will quickly cover in this presentation are outlined on this slide. I'll give you an overview of where we are with the district's economy and the mayor's broad fiscal 23 budget proposal. I'll then drill down on the human services and housing focus. If you have questions about public safety, I am sufficiently armed to address some of those, but I'm not a public safety expert. But I certainly understand the outlines of what the mayor has funded in her budget. And And then I'll have several slides on the status of the encampment program and where we are likely going next. And then I'm available for any questions that you all might have. Moving quickly to the next slide. This gives you a sort of a picture of the district's economy, and the overall, the high level point is that the district's economy is rebounding. If you move from the left of this graph, the second column all the way to the far right, you will see that at the bottom of the graph, as the mayor imposed public health restrictions, multiple layers of mitigation designed to control the virus, they had the expected effect to dampen the economy. We lost almost $1 billion in revenue when people stopped coming to work, businesses were closing, and the unemployment rate went up. And so we had all kinds of issues. Consumer spending dropped by 41%, restaurant spending dropped by 49%. But if you move all the way forward to the right, now that we are in pretty good position with respect to the virus and the infection rate and our vaccination status, we are seeing a significant increase in district revenues. We've gone from a decline of almost $1 billion to an increase of more than $1 billion. The unemployment rate has dropped to 5.8 from 11.1, and we see consumer spending is up 7.3%. Still have a way to go with restaurant spending, but it's about 145% reversal, but they're still in the negative. But it's a good leading indicator of where the economy is going. Next slide, please. This just tells you where we are. The mayor put a very, very significant emphasis on building a vaccine infrastructure and a public message that encouraged everyone to get vaccinated. We now have 95%, almost 95% of district residents who have at least one shot. We have 72% who have the standard 2 shots. About 50% have been boosted. And when you look at the breakthrough rate for people who are fully vaccinated, it's only 5.98%. And most of those folks appear as not having much more than a bad cold. Next slide, please. This gives you a sense of where we are with respect to the infection rate. The gold line reflects those who are not vaccinated. As you can see, during the height of the Omicron period, which was roughly started in end of November and ran through beginning of February, the infection rate was about 838 people per 100,000 for those who are not vaccinated. Much lower for the blue line, those who are fully vaccinated. And if you got your booster, it's almost no infection rates. Very low data. Next slide, please. When the mayor was preparing this budget, we were dealing with the challenges that we thought we would have in fiscal year 22 because of the loss in revenue. But as you can see, the federal government stepped up big time, gave us $2.2 trillion, which the mayor has wisely allocated across basically all of the functional areas of government. The biggest allocations went to affordable housing, also to residents and businesses who were trying to recover. And there were some dollars spent on the reduction of health disparities. Next slide, please. So when you think about where we've been and where we are now and the revenues that are now available to the mayor when she put her proposed budget together, she will invest over $19.5 billion, which has been proposed in a way to help us emerge from the pandemic in a way that is stronger than we would have ever imagined back in the early stages of the pandemic. Next slide, please. The operating budget for the district is $12 billion. The operating budget consists of mostly sales tax, income tax, personal property, property tax, and then you have some small other taxes. It gets you about, and dedicated revenue and special revenue, get you about $12 billion. If you back out the dedicated revenue and the special revenue, you get what is called the local funds budget. That's a $10.7 billion budget. The mayor has spread these investments across these areas of schools, affordable housing, health and human services, facilities maintenance, which includes debt service. And she also made some significant investments in public safety. Next slide, please. There's a lot of focus in her budget on health and human services. Of the 19.5 billion that has been allocated, $5.72 billion is going to Health and Human Services. This amount reflects, in many cases, the fact that we insure about 50% of DC residents at no cost to those residents. About $3 billion. One of the agency that I am in charge of, in addition to being a deputy mayor, is the Department of Healthcare Finance, and we run the Medicaid program. It's about a $3 billion program. With that money, we are able to provide health insurance to about almost 50% of DC residents at no cost to DC residents. The other expenditures in the Health and Human Services cluster, including resources to DHS for homelessness, will take us to $5.72 billion. It's 30% of the $19.5 billion that the mayor has proposed for her budget. The other areas you see is still getting, public education gets $4.2 billion. Public safety, I know that's interest of a lot of you all. It's almost $2 billion. So this is a budget that addresses the major functional areas of government in a really robust way. Next slide, please. Health and Human Services, what are the things that the allocations that if the council approves will help with the situation of affordable housing? The mayor is putting up $114 million to modernize and renovate our supportive housing and shelter services. About 2.8 million of that, about a separate $2.8 million allocation goes to our brand new 801 East Men's Shelter to provide significant programs and services. If you look to the right, there's another $31 million invested to put another 500 housing vouchers on the street for individuals, 260 more for families, and 10 for youth. Next slide, please. The mayor made a historic $500 million contribution to the Housing Production Trust Fund, which is a dedicated fund. And $41 million of that will go to fund vouchers for folks who we call to make housing deeply affordable to persons who are low income. But it's the largest contribution in the history of that fund, and it is critical to building the affordable housing infrastructure that the city so desperately needs. The Housing Production Trust Fund was put in place in 1988, and there are income requirements for who gets subsidies, but it does help substantially produce and preserve affordable housing. There's $110 million, very necessary component of the program, which was to rehabilitate and replace more than 1,500 units of public housing over 3 years. And a lot of this will be for seniors. And there will be another $219 million to bring back public housing in a very purposeful way in mixed use developments in the areas that you see listed: Barry Farms, Park Morton, Bruce Monroe, and Northwest 1. Next slide, please. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about Home with DC. They do a great job, and I call them the think tank for the mayor's policy efforts with respect to our strategies for seeking to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. They have a new strategic plan out that summarizes sort of the lessons that we have learned from the last 5 years, offers a series of vision, guiding principles, and building blocks. And then there's a new outline of the system that they believe would work best and the strategy to dramatically reduce homelessness in the city over the next 3 or 4 years. Next slide, please. If you've been following the mayor at all, you will know that when she came in office, on a given night, we had about 1,500 families experiencing homelessness with their kids, which was awful. And that's when DC began Homeward DC implementation in 2015. 6 years later, the number of families who are homeless has been reduced by 73% to only 400 families. So with that success, we don't lose sight of the fact that we still have 400 families that we're trying to help. But the thrust of the activity will now shift to eradicating homelessness for unaccompanied adults. It's a serious problem. As I mentioned earlier, the shelter system is being completely redesigned to focus on smaller shelters with more space for programming, and they will have a lot of services built into those shelters to help persons move towards some level of independence that can allow them to live safely off the streets. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you some of the features that we have in the newest shelter on 801 East it's a low barrier shelter. A lot of the shelters that you will see that will be built in the next 3 years will replicate this model, providing these services. Again, trying to allow men and women who are homeless to live with dignity, to work on the things that have sort of contributed to their homelessness and move them to a level of independence. Next slide, please. And there's a lot of talk about our encampment palette. We want to make sure that people understand what we mean when we say an encampment. When we talk about encampments, we're talking about tent structures or abodes that are located on public, private, or federal property for that matter, and they don't have the sanction approval of the mayor or the council. Typically at these sites, you will see a mass accumulation of personal belongings that are present even when the residents are not. We're not talking about bulk trash that's easily removable. We're not talking about situations where people are loitering. And we're not talking about, a situation where a person is pushing a cart, something that is easily movable by one person. Next slide, please. We have a fairly elaborate encampment team, and we spend a significant time and resources on trying to address some of the challenges that we have found in over 280 encampment sites across the city. The mayor has instructed us to move forward with the Housing First model for persons living in encampments on the streets. And with the Housing First, the goal is to as fast as we can, get people into housing, and from which we can work with all their other needs so that their homeless can be more permanently addressed. We work with a plethora of agencies, DBH, Public Works, DHS, and now the National Park Service, and some of our contractors, Pathways to Housing and Miriam's Kitchen. We have a budget in fiscal year 22 of $3.9 million. In addition, DHS, above that $3.9 million, they have about 2.1 to get you to $4.2 million for expanded outreach, housing subsidies, staffing costs, and client costs, which are necessary, which we must address in trying to make sure that people can move from a state of homelessness to permanent housing. We are working with the National Park Service. They're going to close down 2 encampments in the coming, probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. They're going to close down some encampments on New York Avenue and at Columbus Circle where Union Station is. We're going to try to work as hard as we can to minimize the disruption and displacement that can come with such a closure. We are dealing with a crunch of time, but we will try to put as many people into housing or bridge housing as we can. And if we can't, we will try to encourage others to go to shelters while we continue to work on housing and just connect them to the range of services that they might be eligible for. Next slide, please. This gives you a picture of the data for the encampment palette, the care program. When we got started in this program, we started this program in the late spring, summer of 2021. We took a count in January of 20. We found about 80 encampments, tenant encampments citywide. We saw 239 tents in these encampments, about 219 people. And the residents that are being targeted by the palette account for about 65% of those folks that we identified in tented encampments. Next slide, please. This gives you an overall picture of the outcomes for the palette thus far. And I don't have any hesitation in saying I think that it's been a very successful effort. Of the 139 people in the palette, 109, 78% haven't choose to engage with us. Of those who engaged with us, we were able to place 84%, as this far right bar shows, into either housing or bridge housing. Most of them went into leased apartments, about 8 went to bridge housing. When you look at the total palette of the 139, including those who did not engage, the success rate is still 66%. So it's been a pretty successful effort. Next slide, please. This gives you some detail that you can look at later on how on the statistics at each site. We had a site at Noma, New Jersey, in Oak Street Park, 21st and East Street, and 25th and Virginia Avenue. We're still at 21st and E and 25th in Virginia, trying to get as many people housed as we can before the pilot site ends. Next slide, please. We do have a list of folks who came to these areas after we had already started the pilot. We have incorporated all of those individuals in the pilot, still separately identify them. The last two sites, there are 14 residents who were not on the program list, and what we call backfill. We have extended pilot services to those individuals and housing navigation services. Of those who are not on the by name list, or who are on the by name, who are not on the by name list but are considered non-by name list. Of the 14 that we're now dealing with, 7 have already been leased up in apartments, and there's 1 who has been placed in a hotel. Next slide, please. That's pretty much summarizes where we are. 1 with the mayor's budget, and 2 with the encampment pilot. The next step is we're to deliver a report to the mayor at the end of this month with data on the outcomes from the pilot, the lessons that we've learned, and the recommendations for moving forward. And we will have that on her desk by April 29th. And that ends my presentation. I'm more than willing, and my team is here to help as well if you all have any questions that you would like us to address.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor, for that great overview. And I have to say that I really, truly appreciate the investment in the affordable care, the affordable housing, an expansion of affordable housing in the city, especially the Care Pilot program, and getting those individuals housed. Kind of a related question to that, you mentioned the closure of the encampment that is currently in 2C01 on New York Avenue. And a lot of these individuals moved from Burke Park to that location. And I'm wondering, is there anything that is being put into place or any lessons learned from the closure of the Burke Park encampment to movement of folks?
Yeah, and I'll let our Deputy Chief of Staff and encampment director speak to that. What we are faced with is, NPS has a different set of bosses than we do, and their bosses are encouraging them to close these sites, particularly as the traffic picks up in the city. There's a concern, given some of the incidents around New York Avenue and Thomas Circle and Columbus Circle, that there could be some flashpoints between residents and who are not homeless and residents who are. So we are sort of beholden to them on their time for closure. They haven't given us a date yet. So Jamal can tell you the things that we are doing now in anticipation of getting a closure date in the near future, the things we're doing now to try to mitigate the need for displacement. Now, I can't say that some of it won't occur, but Jamal, can you give them some sense for what we're doing?
Most definitely. Good evening to all. Again, in regards to the 2 MPS sites that are scheduled for closing during some portion of May 2022, there has been increased outreach engagement to both of those locations in partnership with DHS, as well as 2 of our coverage area outreach providers. We have constructed 2 by name lists for both locations. And what we're currently working on now, while we're awaiting the finalized closure date to be forthcoming from MPS, is to establish how many of those residents are actually eligible for viable housing placement and services. Once that has been completed, we will work towards a temporary bridge housing and or hotel stay plan with resources that are available. And I will tell you, we are stretching resources thin, especially with our work with the Care Pilot and other encampment and homeless related issues throughout the district. However, we do recognize that this is an emergency situation. So with that, all partners are on board to be able to get as many of those residents, again, who agree to engage with services and to service connection into temporary hotel stay and or bridge housing as they are deemed eligible, and then assist them with navigating through towards either rapid rehousing and or permanent supportive housing as they may be eligible for.
That's really great. And I think that in my discussions with some of the individuals experiencing homelessness in an encampment, there has been a tremendous expression of concern about staying in a shelter because of COVID, whether that is, real or perceived risk at this point because of vaccination. I think the hotel situation is definitely another option that is well suited for this. So thank you for doing that. So the pilot program, the care pilot program, is not extending to this location? You are just using like a similar model to address the issues here.
That's correct. We're responding to an external factor that we did not have to consider for the care pilot.
Got it.
That is the planned closure of these sites by MPS. And I'm not critical of their decision to close. I think they view those as federal parks that are intended for another purpose. And if their bosses say they need to make those parks available for those other purposes and not allow them to be used for encampments, that's what they have to do. And then we have to work with them to make sure we can be as successful as possible as mitigating the displacement that could certainly come.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Nelson, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you. That was a really great presentation and very informative, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Any community members have any questions? If you could please raise your hand. All right, I do not see any at the moment. I don't believe. Let me just take a bit of a peek here. Nope, I do not. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate you all being here and providing the presentation this evening.
Again, thanks for having us. Yeah, have a good evening.
Awesome.
You have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll now move. Do we have anyone on from Chairman Mendelson's office? Okay. And how about MPD 1?
There we go. Hi.
Hi.
Lieutenant Donegan here.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I don't really have much to report out on. The, I guess, biggest news from the 1st District is that we do have a new commander. Commander McLean was transferred to the 5th District. So our previous assisting, our rank, the rank was inspector, but it's now Commander Tasha Bryant is assuming the command. So very smooth transition. I think she's been around, she knows 1D, so should be good for all of us. And then just on the crime side of things, like I said, there's really not much to talk about. As when we compare things with last year, obviously with the hopefully moving post-pandemic, businesses reopening, entertainment venues reopening, we've got a ton more people in town, in particular in this part of town. So the thefts and kind of the petty crimes of theft, shoplifting, and theft from autos has gone up compared to last year. It's kind of what I think we would expect just from having so many more people around. It's something we're working on with, in particular with our Chinatown unit, both the daytime Chinatown unit and the evenings, to get a tamp on that to slow it down and bring it back down. On the violent side of things, we only had one violent crime in the last month. That was a robbery up at 7th and I Northwest, where some patrons that were about to go to a Caps game were robbed outside of an ATM. And unfortunately, thus far, we have not made a closure, but the detectives are working on that. And there's some video that's been disseminated internally to try to identify the suspects.
Great. Thank you. It's been, I have not heard of any concerns. Surprisingly, I'm knocking on
Good.
wood when I say that. But
and I know that traditionally there are concerns about drugs and drug sales in particular in the Chinatown area.
right.
And so I just thought about that. Just some good news. Last night, the evening's Chinatown officers made a possession with intent to distribute arrest where they actually got somebody with a gun. So the illegal gun as well as some drugs were taken off the streets. And then our daytime Chinatown units have actually gotten a couple of guns in the last couple of weeks that are also likely related to the drug trade. So we're doing what we can, tossing it over to U.S. Attorney's Office to see what they can do with it or what they will do with it. But we've had some success lately with getting some guns off the street and getting some drugs off as well.
That's great. Terrific. Anybody have any questions for Lieutenant Donegan? Donegan? My tongue won't work tonight. I'm sorry. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lieutenant. I appreciate you being here.
Sure. Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night. And do we have anybody from MPD2? Okay. Then we will move forward. And I would like to call, I'd like to move on to alcohol beverage licensing, ABRA, and call our first licensee, the Carlisle Room and Brennan Bar at 1350 I Street Northwest, a new retailer's Class C restaurant. And is Jeff Jackson on, or somebody representing that establishment?
Yes, good evening, folks. Jeff Jackson here. And I apologize for not having my camera on, but I'm in the hospital right now, so it's kind of a secured area.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Are you okay? That's the first part.
I'm okay. I had a knee replacement, so just going through recovery.
Got it. Okay, well, good luck.
So, but the Carlisle Room is going to be a dinner theater, and it's going to have seating and dinner at the same time, as well as a theater going on. Like they come out of Chicago, and I have the owner on the line, and he can go into further detail.
Awesome.
Hey, yeah, I'm Brendan Riley. I'm here. Pretty much we're a live music show venue, also a full service restaurant. And the goal is pretty much to be an all-in-one night out where people would come, have cocktails, have dinner, see a show, and make a whole night of it. Kind of like the old nightclubs of the mid-century era.
Right. And so you put on a show there as well, which sounds great. And you're at 1350 I Street?
Yeah, right, pretty much the corner of 14th and I.
At 14th and I, okay. Awesome.
It's right where the old Tuscany West used to be.
Yeah, terrific. Awesome.
And Brandon, tell me about the Chicago, the place in Chicago that you have.
Well, I think with all your clients, you may be mixing us up. I wish we had a place in Chicago. But we do. I mean, our design it's like old Art Deco, kind of like the old clubs in New York and Chicago. So it's definitely designed along the lines of those.
Right. And what are your hours of operation?
Well, the plan right now for Carlisle Room is to start Wednesday through Sundays with, Wednesdays, Thursdays, probably ending by 11. Friday, Saturdays, probably midnight or even earlier, depending on the show. And then Sundays, probably 10:30.
Got it.
So we're not a late night place.
Got it.
And the tickets, if I'm correct, Brandon, is purchased online only, right?
Correct. Yeah, we have a ticketing site that they would buy tickets from.
Awesome.
And
And no sidewalk cafe or sidewalk area?
Yes, there's going to be the Sidewalk Cafe.
Okay. And what are the hours of the sidewalk cafe?
The same hours as the establishment.
And what are the opening hours? You mentioned the closing, but not the opening.
Oh, the opening would be weekdays 11:30, and Saturday, Sunday. Saturday maybe like 10 because we're going to do a breakfast. Sunday is probably 11.
So basically from 11 to 11, basically.
Pretty much. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, on the Carlisle Room side, like Sunday, it'll be a Sunday brunch, and then we'll have a show at night. So there'll probably be a little dead time in between, but the bar would be open to the public the whole day.
Okay.
Got it. Terrific. Any questions? Any other questions, Commissioner?
Did the Tuscany Room have a sidewalk cafe? I don't recall.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so it's going to be basically the same footprint?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many seats are out there?
I believe it's like 25.
And how many inside?
I believe about inside, if Brandon, what is it, like 270?
That'd be probably max. It depends. We do different floor plans depending on the show, but yeah, I mean, the average show would probably be 220 to 240, maybe.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
And this is a full service restaurant. So when there's no shows going on, it's a restaurant at all times.
Right.
Okay.
Fantastic. And I don't have any, Julius?
Yes, sir. I just had one question. What was the name of the establishment?
It is the Carlisle.
Yeah,
Room.
Carlisle.
Thank you.
Got it. Awesome. I'd like to move that we send a letter of support for the Carlisle Room and Brennan Bar at 1350 I Street Northwest.
Second.
And all those in favor, raise your hand. So 2 of 2 commissioners voting in favor of that. Thank you so much. And we'll get that letter off. It looks like you're, are you going to be opening prior to, it looks like, when are you going to be opening? Or when do you plan?
Well, construction is playing a little role in that. Right now, I think probably between mid-May to beginning of June.
Got it. Got it. Would you need a stipulated license?
Yes, that's what we're looking for. Stipulated license.
You're looking for a stipulated license as well?
Yes.
Terrific. I would move that we send a letter for a stipulated license for the Carlisle Room as well.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Awesome. 2 of 2 voting in favor. Okay, we'll get that off for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. We look forward to that opening, and visiting over there, and good luck with your knee.
Thank you.
All right. Let me just switch over here. Next on our agenda, we'll move into transportation and public space. And we will, the first applicant is Taffer's Tavern at 706th Street Northwest. This is for a new sidewalk cafe that is opening there. We did, I believe at our last meeting, approve their liquor license. And I have on the screen already with us is Deborah Moy.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you. Is it okay if I share the screen? Or?
You may, please.
All right. Pull up the plan here. So thank you. Yes, this is, I'm Deborah Moy. I'm here with Restaurant Consultants representing Taffer's Tavern. I also have Leonard on with me. He's the general manager for the tavern and can speak to operations. But as you can see here, let me feed in a little bit. It will be there on 6th Street. We'll have 5 tables. You have the 4 rounds, and then we have a little 2-seater in the alcove here. We will have 1 ADA seat, and we'll have railings around you. This particular location, you have the alley that comes down beside here, so there will be a railing there to protect on that end, as well as railings to set off the area along the sidewalk. They are going to have the 10-foot pedestrian pathway, since we know that it's a very busy sidewalk.
Yep.
So they will have the 10-foot pedestrian pathway available. And their hours of operation are going to be 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Daily. So does anyone have any questions? Or Leonard, you're happy to speak about the tavern itself?
Yeah, does everyone know who John Taffer is?
I do. I do not want to have a bar and have him come to it.
You know what? It's all it's a TV show. Remember that.
I know. I remember that. I have to remember. No,
he couldn't be kinder. I mean,
sure
he's not as intimidating as everybody. It's funny. People want to meet him whether they're scared of him or whether they like him.
Oh, so I've never heard of him. So who is he? I have to know.
He does a TV program called Bar Rescue. So
that's him. Okay.
Yeah, he has saved over 800 bars in the nation over the past 5 years. So this is his little baby. It's got his signature on it for all the decor, the food. It's state-of-the-art kitchen. So there is no fryers, there is no oil, there is no gas. So I don't know if you're familiar with sous vide food.
Yep.
We have no raw product in our kitchen. So everything is completely consistent and the same all the time. No shrinkage, no grease, no gas. Ventless kitchen.
Love that.
Yeah.
That
a little healthier all the way around.
Yep, exactly. That is fantastic. And when do you anticipate opening?
Same answer as the construction is going. We're going to apply for a health and CO May 21st. So opening shortly after that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yay.
Yeah, inside's about 225 seats. And we also have a test kitchen in the basement for our parent company, Cuisine Solutions, which is the #1 sous vide company in the world. And we'll be running ghost kitchens out of there. So they'll practice on their scientific side of it and sell food on Uber Eats, DoorDash, through our front door.
Oh, that's really great. Fantastic. Great model. Well, we hopefully will run into Mr. Taffer sometime in the neighborhood. That'd be awesome.
He definitely will be in.
Awesome. Fantastic. And this is the same footprint as, I believe, the previous
Penn Commons, yes. I think the patio's a little smaller. That third door, there's 3 front doors there. They blocked the third door and had seating in front of it. So they didn't use that door. We will use that door. So our seating is a little bit smaller outside than theirs.
Got it.
Yeah, that particular location doesn't allow a lot of expansion beyond what was there before.
Right.
No.
Right.
That's great. It's basically for overflow and beautiful days like today, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to close it at 11 every night.
Yep.
And
which is great. So I'd like to move that we send a letter of support for Taffer's Tavern and their new sidewalk cafe.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor? Awesome. 2 of 2 voting in favor. So we will get that off for you all.
Thank you so much.
And we'll go from there. Awesome.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to going there too and dining. So
Not a problem. You're welcome.
awesome.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Have a great night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dad.
Yep, you too.
Thank you. All right. And is anybody from Bobby Van's Grill at 1201 New York Avenue on with us? Okay. I do not see anybody. So we will move forward to planning, zoning, environment, and historic preservation. And first up is 613 to 617 H Street. And I see Jessica waving in the background to me. So hi, Jessica, welcome.
Hello, good
and,
evening.
And team.
The team is here. I'm Jessica Bloomfield with the law firm of Holland and Knight. And I'm here with John Oliver, an associate in our group, as well as Jeff Olson and Killian O'Brien from Monument Realty, the applicant in the project. And I'm not sure if he's on yet, but Doug Carter from DCS Design, our architects, should be on or will be, or someone will be, to answer questions. I'm gonna just quickly go through what we're proposing, and then we can turn it over to the commissioners or take your lead if the public wants to ask some questions, and we can go over all of that. I am gonna share my screen if that's okay.
Please.
Okay, so this is the site. Well, let me take a step back. We are applying for a BZA application. We haven't submitted the application yet, but should be within the next day or so. We're just about ready to go, but we wanted to touch base with all of you before we did so, get some feedback. You've seen a BZA case for this site before.
Jessica, could you? Yeah. Gigi, are you seeing the screen?
I'm waiting for it to come up. It just says that she started sharing, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Let me try again.
Yep. There we go. You got it.
Great. This is the site right here. It's on the north side of H Street Northwest in between 6th and 7th Streets. The address is 613 to 617 H Street. As I was about to say, you've seen this a BZA application for this site before. In 2017, we came in with a proposal for an office building with ground floor retail at the same site. That application expired, is no longer valid, and we are now proposing a residential building with ground floor retail instead at the site. It's the I Street project, as identified here on the site plan, also came before this ANC. This is approved as a residential building, also with ground floor retail. And if 615 H Street is approved, the two projects will actually be connected below grade through a shared parking garage. So the two sites are both owned by entities of Monument Realty, and so that's how the connection will work. But tonight we are just talking about this property right here, which has frontage on H Street. This is a ground floor plan. You can see that we have primarily retail space on the ground floor with entrances on H Street. The yellow represents the residential access or corridor. I'm going to go up one floor, the levels 2 and 3. This is showing residential units. This space right here is a portion of an existing building that is on the site that we're going to be retaining and incorporating into the new construction and the program of the project. It is not a historic building. It is not in a historic district, but we've been working with the GC Preservation League and have agreed to keep that facade intact. Going up the floors, this is a typical floor plan. And you can see here that at the very corner of the building, we are not building anything on top of that existing building. We're setting the building back from it. And if you continue to go up, you can see that we have additional setbacks along H Street, pulling back from the street. This is the one level of below grade. This is the connection here to I Street. We're going to have a couple of parking spaces. We will have bicycle parking spaces at this level. All of the loading for the project will be provided in the I Street project, which is permitted under the zoning regulations. And I should mention, because I haven't yet, that the BZA relief we need is for a rear yard. I should have said that on the outset, but that relief was actually granted by the board when we came in a few years ago for the office building. It's the same relief. A 22.5-foot rear yard is required and a 15-foot rear yard is being provided. I just wanted to provide you that context. And if I just quickly go back here, it's this right here is the rear yard being provided, and it would if we were held to the strict letter of the law, we would have to set the building back by another 7.5 feet or so. So it's minimal, but a variance is required. I'm going to keep going here back to where I was. This is the front facade of the building facing H Street. You can see here the existing building that we're preserving for those 3 stories, and all of this is new construction. And here's a view, the southeast view, looking down H Street. And here's southwest view, looking the other way down H Street. And that is, that's our presentation this evening. This is an excerpt of the plans that we intend to file with the BZA application, which will be served on all of you when we file later this week. And we would love to take any questions that you have.
You're adding floors to the building?
So the existing building is just this little one right here.
Oh, that's what we're talking about?
So there's an existing building right here, but the whole site, the development site, goes from here all the way over to here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's currently 2 lots. Right here is a parking lot right now.
The parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I got
This is the existing building right here, this little piece. And
Yeah.
this, well, it goes all the way back, is a parking lot, surface parking.
And the existing building, it's been vacant for a couple of years, but before that it was Ming's restaurant.
Got it.
And I think there's still signage on it for Ming's.
Yeah. And so the variance that you're asking for is, instead of being 20 feet, the law is 20 feet from the property line. Have to be, you're a little less than that with the building.
Exactly. So the property line is right here, and I don't know if you recall or not, but we actually closed this little piece of the alley in order to connect these 2 buildings. So that's done, and we granted an easement back. So no one's ever going to know that this alley is closed, but technically it is, so that we can build below grade.
Yep.
The distance between the rear property line and the rear line of the building is 15 feet.
Got it.
22.5 feet is required. And as you'll see when we submit our BZA application, the other buildings on this with frontage on H Street, all of their rear building walls also are at this public alley line. So what we're going to be doing is maintaining the existing condition in the alley.
Right.
I can't recall whether it's this lot or this lot, but there was another BZA application for what was the Pod Hotel. Maybe it's called something different now. The BZA granted rear yard relief in that case as well under the exact same conditions. So there's a precedent on this block. The BZA also granted the exact same relief for this site for the office building in 2017. So there's very good precedent for it that we meet the legal standard for the variance request.
Yep, exactly. Any questions that anybody, Commissioner Nelson, do you have any questions or anybody
Yes,
else?
actually, I was just curious. You mentioned it's going to be residential. Is it going to be apartments or condos?
Apartments is the plan right now. So for rent units.
Okay. And also, as far as the ground floor retail, like what kind, or do you know yet?
We don't know yet. I would suspect that it will be a restaurant, just given the location, but we don't have a tenant in mind right now.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from community members?
How many units and floors in total?
Right now it's planned for 72 units. That might change by a couple of units as we work through the design, but call it about 70 units. And then the building is 110 stories, which is 11 floors in height.
110 feet.
110 feet, sorry. Yeah. As a developer, I might wish it could be 110 stories.
Not in this city.
Nope. And the 72 units would include both the I Street and it would include which?
The 72 units are just on the H Street property.
On just the H Street.
Yep, the I Street property is entirely separate, has already been approved by the BZA, and I've only have been discussing it for context, and particularly as it relates to how parking and loading will be accessed for the H Street site.
Got it.
But the I Street property is about 160 units.
Oh, got it. And so 615 is not going to be 72 units.
So what's labeled here as 615 is really 613 through 617, which is our project site, and that project site will be 72 units.
Got it.
And maybe it's helpful. I didn't go through all of the floors, but so this is levels 2 and 3. I skipped some of the levels in between because it's just typical floor plans. This is levels 6 to 8, and then levels 9 to 11. I didn't show you all of the floor plans, but when you add it all up, it's 72 units.
Got it. And that includes the new building that would be going in the parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Only a small handful of the units are actually going to be within the existing building because the existing building is really small.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, that has to be really small. When you said 72, I was like, wait a minute. So does, Mark, does that answer your question there?
Yes, thank you very much.
Last question for me anyway. I know it's 72 units, more or less, depending on how things shake out, but are any of those going to be, affordable housing, or how does that shake out?
So not on H Street, although we will be making a contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund for penthouse space. I Street does have some affordable units. There's actually no affordable units required right now in these D zones, which you guys probably know. However, on I Street, we had offered some as part of the mayor's agent approval process on that project.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to move that we send a letter of support for the BZA, the variance to the BZA for rear yard variances for this property.
Second.
And just show of hands, all those in favor? Okay, 2 of 2 commissioners voting in favor.
And that's a quorum in this commission, in this ANC?
It is.
Just making sure. I heard you guys are getting a 4th commissioner. That'll be good.
Yes, we need a 4th commissioner.
Yeah.
I was so appreciate the commission who worked on that to add commissioners to our body, which is great.
Fantastic. We will, when we file the application, we'll send you both a copy of that. And would it be helpful if we draft up a resolution in support and send it to you?
I would love that, Jessica. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Great. will make your job easier. Thank you again, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you being here. And next on our agenda is the National Capital Planning Commission and the Pennsylvania Avenue Visions and Concepts. And I believe we have Elizabeth Miller, who's joining us here.
Mm-hmm. And Karen Shearhold.
Okay.
Hey there.
We have missed seeing you.
You know, bring back some memories in my heart. You're pulling at my heartstrings.
Oh, I know. And you said Sharon was also on?
Karen.
Oh, Karen.
Karen Shearhold, yeah.
Got it. Well, welcome, both of you.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to see everyone. I see some familiar names. And happy to be here tonight. We do have, if you don't mind, we can share our screen.
Please.
And make sure that's all up and working before we get started.
Yes, we have that up.
Okay, great. Good evening, commissioners, for this time. Really thank you for your time on your agenda tonight. I know it's been, it's becoming a long night for you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Elizabeth Miller. I'm the Director of Physical Planning for the National Capital Planning Commission. And I'm here with Karen Shearhold, who's our NCPC's project manager for the Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative. And we're both excited to be here to share a new vision for the Avenue. And I'm going to give you just a brief intro and then turn it over to Karen to go through the vision and concepts. So over time, incremental land use and fiscal and economic changes have really impacted the use and function of the Avenue, which has really become a detriment to downtown's vitality. As you all know, the roadway is very wide with very few cars these days and very little street level activity. You know, and the Avenue was once the nation's most iconic street, but it's no longer that destination. And this was even occurring prior to the pandemic. Federal and local agencies, or federal and district agencies, I should say, have been working on how to revive the Avenue and agree that a new vision is needed. This has become even more important as the city works to recover from the impact of the pandemic. So we all feel that it's now time to leverage the Avenue's assets, reclaim its important role in the city and the nation, and contribute to the district's economy, recovery and long-term health. Okay, so make sure we're on the next one. Yes. So over time, the Avenue is actually seeing cycles of renewal and decline for more than 230 years. The most recent renewal started in the 1970s when Congress created and charged what you may have heard of as the Pennsylvania Avenue Development Corporation with properly developing, using, programming, and maintaining the Avenue as both an asset to the city and commensurate with its both symbolic and civic role in the nation's capital. The 1974 plan, which the PADC prepared, is shown here. This is what guided redevelopment, pretty much similar to what we have there today. And it's almost a half a century old now, and it's still the guiding document. So it's a little overdue for an update. So in 1996, Congress actually delegated, or dissolved the corporation and delegated their responsibilities to federal and district agencies and charged us with carrying forth the PADC's requirement to ensure the Avenue is maintained commensurate with its civic role in the capital. These agencies, we've been working together, and we've kicked off the Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative to really assess how to restore its beauty and revive its economic health. And we all have agreed that a vision is needed, and this is becoming even more important as we recover from the impacts of the pandemic, which is hopefully soon behind us. Our area of focus is this 1.2 mile corridor and about 40 acres of adjoining public space between the White House and the US Capitol. We're just going to spend some time highlighting key points tonight. We do invite you and the community to visit our website at ncpc.gov, where you can learn more about the vision and concepts. And we will provide some information at the end of the presentation to give you some information about those links to get you there directly. And in some cases, I don't know why I've just missed my cue here. So we're actually going to be hosting 3 public meetings between now and May 21st. Tomorrow is the first public meeting, April 13th. It will be at noon. If anyone is interested, you can sign up on our website. And we also have dates, and we'll share those at the end of the meeting for our next 2 public meetings. And I will also say that being the community and that the avenue is within your jurisdiction, we'd be happy to meet, provide additional briefings, or even meet with representatives one-on-one if that's helpful. So I'm going to get right to it and turn it over to Karen to overview the vision and concepts.
Great, thank you, Beth. Good evening, commissioners. So leading up to this work, we completed several studies to inform decision-making, including a pedestrian life study, transportation study, urban design, and market analysis. In a 2020 report examining how the city could recover from the impacts of the pandemic, the Urban Land Institute highlighted the importance of using public space, placemaking, design, and civic infrastructure to revitalize downtown. As Beth mentioned, there have been incremental changes over the years. Perhaps the most significant is the permanent closure of streets around the White House. The avenue is no longer that crosstown thoroughfare, which has really changed the street's function and isolated the avenue from the city's fabric. So as a result, the transportation study revealed that we have about 20 feet or 2 travel lanes of roadway space that we can reallocate to other uses. The avenue's infrastructure is aging and its physical condition declining. We've seen economic decline as major commercial tenants have moved to new Class A offices in other parts of the city. We've also found that the avenue doesn't have the characteristics to be a successful retail street. The loss of tenants has made it even more difficult to sustain viable retail, which has only worsened since the pandemic began. Federal and district agencies engaged experts from the land development and economic disciplines to review these studies and push us to think about what the avenue is and also what it's not. This informed the vision that the avenue should be more than a beautiful street, and considering its location and scale, its best use is as a curated corridor. This aligns with the district's effort to generate tourism, revive the local economy, and bring people back downtown and make it a more desirable place to live, work, and attractive for businesses to invest. So we envision the avenue as a signature venue for occasional spectacular and celebratory events where all are welcome, uplifted, inspired. The avenue could also be better suited to host some of the events that are typically held on the National Mall. We also envision the avenue as a street for people, devoting less space to cars and more space for bikes and transit and pedestrians. We need to create comfortable and amazing public spaces for people to enjoy every day, all day and into the evening. So to do this, we need to right-size the road to match today's needs and free up space for other uses. We've prepared 3 concepts that explore different ways to realign circulation, reconfigure public space, and offer different options to balance daily use of the street with event programming. So I'll give a quick tour of the concepts, starting with the 3 themes that guide them. Urban Capital Street proposes a downtown destination with expansive sidewalks, comfort amenities, and services. Linear Green proposes a car-free urban linear park that prioritizes transit, people, and bikes. And Civic Stage proposes a large central pedestrian promenade on center with the Capitol Vista with ample flexible spaces for daily activity and special events. So each theme treats the corridor and each of the avenue's major public spaces differently, with some modest and some ambitious ideas to consider. We'll look at the typical corridor condition first, then dive into the public spaces. So get my pointer. These cross sections at the top illustrate different ways to reallocate the 20 feet of roadway space I mentioned earlier. Urban Capital is close to the existing condition. It uses the surplus roadway space to expand the sidewalks with more room for pedestrians and dedicated lanes for cars, transit, and bikes. Linear Green concept is car-free. It uses the surplus roadway to create a curbless pedestrian park with transit and bike lanes in the center. And Civic Stage uses that surplus to create a central pedestrian promenade running the length of the avenue with bike and travel lanes on either side. So this next series of illustrations shows how each theme reroutes circulation and reconfigures public space for daily use and for some special events. So we'll start at the western side of the avenue near Freedom Plaza. And Urban Capital here on the left brings the travel and bike lanes diagonally through the space with a curbless roadway, creating two bow tie plazas in front of the Wilson Building and also in front of National Theater. In the center, linear green moves the transit and bikes to the south. This kind of creates a park in front of the National Theater that begins a landscape sequence that extends down to the US Capitol. And over here on the right, Civic Stage moves the travel lanes to the north of the plaza spaces, creating a gracious plaza in front of the Wilson Building and also a more prominent entry for the White House Visitor Center. At Market Square, our efforts focus on how this area can really become the heart of the avenue. So Urban Capital here proposes a simple mid-block pedestrian crossing to improve pedestrian quality. Linear Green proposes closing this block entirely, rerouting transit around it, and creating a permanent park space for an active urban park. And Civic Stage could add an expanded pedestrian crossing that joins with that center median promenade to create a new central square. And go down to the east end where Pennsylvania, Constitution, and 4th Street intersect. Here, Urban Capital adding a generous pedestrian crossing at 4th Street. Linear Green proposes straightening the intersection with Constitution and closing 4th Street. And then for Civic Stage, we go big and propose a tunneling Constitution Avenue, combining with a closure at 4th Street to create a cohesive network of pedestrian spaces at the avenue level. So our final stop on the tour, this is the area west of 3rd Street, is not part of our formal study area, but we felt it was important to envision how the avenue transitions to the Capitol grounds to improve that arrival experience. So here on the left, Urban Capital replaces the angled parking in the center of the street with a landscape median. Linear Green, again, this is the car-free option that removes all parking from the avenue and transforms the street into a high-performing landscape. And then finally, Civic Stage keeps parallel parking along the curbs and extends that center promenade to the Peace Monument. So we've also explored how these public spaces can be more usable and flexible. This example shows a reconfigured Freedom Plaza that creates really a new permanent plaza for the Wilson Building, which can expand the public space from building face to building face and also extend activity down the avenue for something like a multi-day flower festival. This is an example of the East End where a lot of the major events already occur. So this is showing that straightened alignment with Constitution and a permanent closure at 4th Street here to increase that usable space and create a main stage area that could extend activity along intersecting streets and the public spaces. And finally, we have an example of how Civic Stage's street section with that center promenade could potentially accommodate a mile-long venue while maintaining some traffic flow on either side for an event of a longer duration. So that was a extremely quick and very high-level overview of our concepts, and I will turn this back over to Beth to wrap things up.
Great, thank you, Karen. And one thing we want to mention, and Karen, I talked about there are some modest moves and some minimal changes or ideas with minimal changes, and there's some other larger, more ambitious moves. These are all just initial ideas. They're really to kind of push the envelope, both in both directions, from minimal, excuse me, to some of the more ambitious, just to get us thinking about what might be possible and what might work and what may not work. So that's why we're very early in this visioning process and really looking at these as ideas that we can get some input on and move forward into something that is more of a refined concept or idea down the road. And if anything, COVID has revealed that the demand for infrastructure and high quality public space is important and more desirable for not only the recovery within the district, but we're finding that throughout the country. And so we think it's now is the time to think about how redevelopment strategies for the avenue as civic investments and how they can drive economic revitalization and make the downtown, as Karen mentioned, a more desirable place to live, work, and visit. And these investments would be much like investing in a waterfront or a convention center, because we would be putting investments into our public space. So the big question is, how do we make this happen? Federal and district agencies are in very early discussions about near and midterm actions to both test and implement interim improvements that can show some quick returns with modest investment. We do have some important events that are on the horizon, like the 2025 inaugural, as well as the country's 250th anniversary, which both offer an opportunity and an incentive to start planning now on how we can better accommodate these kinds of activities. In the near term, we would like to use what we call pilot projects to test ideas before we invest in long-term improvements. Anything we do here is going to be important. We want to make sure we do the right thing before those long-term investments. So we feel that testing these ideas is very important. And that is something we would be looking to do within the next 2 to 4 or 5 years. And in the midterm, we'd like to improve the infrastructure like telecom, as well as power and water hookup, and possibly even security along some parts of the avenue to help manage some of the First Amendment activities that are planned and some of those that are more spontaneous, as well as to help support these upcoming celebrations and events that I just mentioned. And what's interesting about the avenue is that its configuration, the corridor and each of the public spaces is configured in a way that over the long term that we can phase implementation of these physical changes that we've talked about and that might evolve from these conversations. So for example, we could implement some of the public spaces or the corridor itself in any order at any time according to priority and need. But the main objective is that we have a long-term master plan for those kinds of improvements. So this concludes our very high-level presentation. We are currently within a 120-day public comment period that goes through July 13th. We're going to use this public input to help develop a preferred idea or concept, and there will be ample opportunity over the course of the development of these concepts and design development for public input during each phase of our work. This image here shows the links where you can learn more on our website at ncpc.gov. And I'll just take a minute to review those for you. The first link will take you to our main page, the Pennsylvania Avenue project page, where you can find background information as well as links to many of the technical studies that Karen referenced, as well as some of the previous public forums that we've held over the years. The second link shows a blue arrow that points to a tab where you can go to a story map. This provides a narrated tour of the avenue, goes into a little bit more detail than Karen provided today, and it really is the easiest way to view and learn more about the vision and concepts. And then the red arrow points to the location where you can submit comments on our website, and we also will be accepting comment letters that can be emailed to info@ncpc.gov. Again, all of this information is on the website, to look at at your leisure. So we do encourage you to provide us your input and feedback. And as residents and business owners in the immediate neighborhood, we are very interested in your thoughts and on how we might strike a balance, the right balance between daily use along the avenue, as well as how we can accommodate some of these events that will help bring in some tourism and more activity into the area, while also improving the quality of life and maintaining the symbolic and really historic and important character of this very special street. So our next public meeting, as I mentioned, it is tomorrow, Wednesday, April 13th at 12 noon. Anyone that's interested can sign up on our website. It's not too late. There will be a second meeting scheduled for Tuesday, April 26th at 7 p.m. and a third on a Saturday, May 21st at 10 a.m. We invite the community to tune in to any of these meetings. And again, we're happy to talk to the ANC and any representatives you have about any of these ideas as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over and see if there's any questions, any initial thoughts that you might have.
Thank you both very much. And I know that Jeff has put some links in the chat for the websites as well. Thank you for doing that. I think this is really exciting to have this re-envision, because it does feel a little concrete written. I'm curious, have you discussed with the BED or worked with the BED on their parks assessment plan?
Yes, we have actually. The BID has actually been one of our partners from very early on, and we've worked very closely with them. In fact, I will say that it was the work on this initiative that resulted in the planters along the avenue, and I'm apologizing for those security planners that protect our federal buildings, but our work was responsible for doing, and the BID actually implemented it, was to, put some nice colorful plants and kind of spruce up the avenue a bit, as well as some of the temporary furnishings that have been placed out over the years. And then most recently, we have been working very closely with Galen Brooks on the master plan. We've met with her design team a few times. And what's interesting is that we're kind of looking at the 10,000 foot level right now. These are big ideas. We haven't gotten in and really looked at any specifics about how you would design or even specifically program a space. We've thought a lot about programming, but we're not there yet. Whereas what the BID is focusing on is really that daily programming,
right? And
how to break these spaces down and make them more comfortable and more usable and more livable. So a lot of the work that we're doing is very complementary, and we're going to be working very closely together as we proceed. And I should also mention, there might be some people on the call, but Galen is organizing a briefing with us to basically meet with all of the property owners along the avenue and some of the building managers as well for a specific briefing to get input to get more specific input for some of their specific needs.
Right. And the center model, the green, is the greener?
There's two. Karen, you might want to pull those up. There's civics. There's the green. There's the linear green, which is the transit only. Again, that's a big idea, pushing the envelope. The transit only, more of a linear park scenario, and then there's civic stage, which is that kind of center grand promenade. There you go.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So there would always be some form of traffic flow on the avenue. Okay.
Yes. The linear green actually proposes transit only. Right. So it does reroute vehicular traffic or car traffic. But urban capital, as Karen mentioned, is most like today's condition. It really focuses on the public space being along the sidewalks. The urban capital redistributes those spaces, puts more pedestrian space in the center, reduces the size of the roadway, but there is shared vehicular, car, and transit lanes, as well as dedicated bike lanes.
Mm-hmm. These are very exciting. I really love the ideas and the concepts. I think the more public spaces we have, it makes our city more inviting. And I know that I'm sure you're going to hear complaints by traffic, by reducing traffic flow on these streets. But I think it is a really great thought to move forward with something like this.
Just following up on, Karen had mentioned that we did a very robust, very rigorous transportation study with Department of Transport, with DDOT,
right,
the District Department of Transportation. And we found, and this was pre-pandemic, that we could lose those 2 lanes without affecting the level of service.
Right.
So it wouldn't necessarily cause more congestion. And that's kind of that 20 feet that we're playing with right now.
Got it. Which is great. Which is great.
So I had a couple questions, and Michael, I'll be that person who's always thinking about traffic and has, issues with that. But I was wondering, are we the first ANC that you've made this presentation to, or have you made presentations to other ANCs who are affected by this project?
No, you are the first.
And I'm assuming that you are planning to talk to all of them that are, affected or in the general or in this area.
We're actually going to be inviting them. This is between 3rd Street and 15th, which is my understanding is all within ANC 2C, unless that's changed with your revised boundaries. But so we really wanted to get to you first and provide this briefing. And we are going to be inviting, in fact, I think we've already sent notices out, inviting all the other ANC commissioners to any of our public meetings. And of course, always welcome the opportunity to come present to them directly. And we've also asked that they help get this out to their community, because the avenue belongs to the city. It's a very important district street, but it also belongs to the nation. And so we want to make sure that we look at everyone within the district that's interested in this, as well as the region. And of course, doing our best to reach out nationally as well.
So, right, if you're talking about something that's going to span from the White House to the Capitol, I believe the Capitol, the area around there is ANC 6. I'm not sure if it's C or D, but it's so not all of this is in our ANC, if I'm not mistaken. So I do like the idea. I'm all for green space, and as Michael pointed out, there's a lot of concrete down here. So more green is good. But I guess my concern is, if I had to choose one today, I'd probably go with urban capitol. And that's because my concern is that when you start sort of closing streets, and I get that it's, the street belongs to the nation. That's a sentiment that I can appreciate. But it's, this is where people live, and not only where they live, but it's also where people who live in Virginia or in other parts of DC that travel through this area to get to their jobs in the city, right? And so, and anybody on this call can attest to this, there are already so many street closures down here when things happen that traffic being routed around that is already a nightmare. So, and maybe, to be fair, maybe changing this whole environment would mitigate some of that and alleviate some of that. I don't know, because I'm certainly not an urban planner or, a transportation specialist. But having said that, my concern, like I said, is just, when people are trying to get into the city to get to their jobs, if this creates that much more of a hassle for them, because now all of this is pedestrian only, or it's configured in such a way that just makes it that much more difficult for people who do have to rely on cars. In a perfect world, we'd all be able to ride our bikes to work or walk, right? I'm lucky enough to be able to do that, but I do recognize that there are a lot of people who have to travel into downtown from other places who don't have that luxury. And so I'm always trying to sort of think about how this is going to affect them. And so I don't know, I followed the email traffic, a lot of the emails that we get from your agency or your organization. I'm curious though, do you have people on your commission who are sort of, talking to people on the ground and I realize you can't talk to everybody about who this might affect, but just sort of an idea of like how people might be affected who do have to travel in, and again, I realize this is sort of the bird's level view, and you haven't really thought about in terms of like planning for, I think you said like the actual like day-to-day events, the way that the bid is looking at right now, that you're sort of more at the, the 10,000 foot view. And so maybe that's a question that you can't answer. But I would be curious to know, like, the makeup of your, I guess, commission, or the people that you have that are really sort of digging into this. And, I know that you said you did a transportation study with DDOT. You'll have to forgive me if, we have our own issues with DDOT. I think even Michael would agree with that. Just that's a whole conversation for a whole nother day. But so I'm glad that there is a study, but I would still take it with a grain of salt, is what I'll say.
Okay, that's all good. And I will say that we are just at the very beginning of reaching out, and that's what this period is for, is to try to get this out so that as many people know about it as possible, so we can start getting to the right folks. And I will say that I used to live in your ANC and spent quite a bit of time at Freedom Plaza. Used to watch the skateboarders there, but never quite understood, to be honest, how important it is to them. So we're hearing from a lot of different communities, skateboarding community being one, where the bicycle community. We're going to be meeting with WMATA as well as the COG and the Transportation Planning Board, which does look at this at more of a regional scale. We've got a pretty extensive outreach list. I mean, as far as our commission's concerned, we're made up of 12 commissioners. We have 3 presidential appointees. We have a member of the House, member of the Senate, and then the 3 largest landholding agencies, one being the National Park Service, General Services Administration, and Department of Defense. And of course, both the Park Service and GSA are key stakeholders here as well, considering its location and its adjacencies. But most importantly, we also have the mayor has a representative on our commission, as well as Chairman Mendelson. And then they have 2 resident appointees that sit on the commission. So we hear, from all of, and actually the mayor's representative is typically the director of the Office of Planning, director of Office of Planning, which is in transition right now. So those are the folks we're hearing from. And the other thing just to mention is right now, I believe there's like 8 travel lanes, and we're not looking, linear green is a whole different idea. That's the one that's looking to reroute traffic, but both Civic Stage and Urban Capital both just reduce the number of lanes or change how they're being used. But it doesn't reroute or at least, and we'll make sure to take this to heart, according to our analysis, doesn't change the level of service that it would create any more congestion. But again, we're very early on. There's a lot more work to do, and your comments are very important, and I think things that we'll definitely look to as we move forward. Because you live here, you got to use it every day. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other questions from community members who are on the line with us this evening?
I know this is a lot to absorb. Yeah. It's a lot of information.
Sorry, actually, I wondered would it be possible for us to get a copy of this slide presentation?
Yes, I think we provided one earlier, but we have done some minor updates to it. Happy to provide that to you.
Thank you.
And also just would welcome, if there's any particular organization or association that you haven't already mentioned, please zip us an email and we'll be sure to reach out.
Well, Elizabeth and Karen, I appreciate your bold vision, and I appreciate you pushing the envelope to reduce some of our dependency on cars as a society. I think that's really important as we move forward. And I know Gigi is going to come at me in a minute, but I think it's really important for us to consider that. And I was going to ask you about the skateboarders because I saw a number of posts related to skateboarders coming forward with concerns as well. So that's great that you're taking all of this into account and gathering this information, which is so important. So thank you for doing this, and we will weigh in on this for sure.
Thank you. And let us know if there's any particular way you'd like to do that, and we'd be happy to discuss what that might look like.
That is great.
Okay, great. Thank
Awesome.
you. Well, have a good night.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Is there, I believe we are through the agenda. Is there any other agenda items for this evening? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?